thing, this is the biggest thing, is that wasn't J.P. Morgan fined because they were playing games with it? Silver?
Absolutely. Yes.
I think they were fined $900 million or something.
Right.
And the thing I want to say is that this, a real silver coin today, I go into a store and I test the sales clerks. I said, this is a real silver coin. I'll give you this for $10. They go, it doesn't make sense to them. I said, but today, one of these is $10. And that's how much silver is going up. And that's why I'm so bullish on it. I think $200 silver is not I'm not only guessing, so don't take my word for it. And this is not financial advice. I just tell you what I do. And I hold real physical silver. It's kept in a safe in Liechtenstein, outside of Switzerland. I don't keep it near my home because you invite people over then. But that's how bullish I am on silver because, again, it's an industrial metal. It's very long time to bring a silver mine online. It's harder to find. It's generally a derivative of another, they're looking for copper or something and they find it. And the biggest part about it is people like J.P. Morgan, the big bank, are playing games with. They sell into the future silver to drive the price down so they can buy it at a lower price and it comes back up again. So that's why eventually the games are about to end when the silver supply ends. And that's why I'm saying $200 silver. And I'm not expecting you to give a forecast. That's my forecast. It's just a guess, really. It's just because I'm a big, fat silver bull. So anyway, what else would you like to add to the reasons for buying silver?
Well, I'm going to give a guess too, which is, and I talk about it in the book, and it's not financial advice for me either, but my target is actually a bit higher. I think we're going to eventually see as much as $300 silver. And in the book, I give about 4 or 5 different examples, indicators that I use.
Today is May 2026, and it's about $90 an ounce. So I'm calling for 200, and you're calling for 300.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And I looked at different indicators to come up with my forecast. And when I wrote the book, I looked at things like the gold-silver ratio. And if you look at when we were at the end of that big mania in 1980, the ratio when gold was $850 and silver peaked at $50, essentially right around the same day, the ratio had dropped 15 to 1 or just below. So meaning it took 15 at those prices, it took 15 ounces of silver to buy 1 ounce of gold. So I said, okay, if I look into the future and I make some guesses, hopefully informed ones about where I think gold is going, I thought, and this is going to be interesting, Robert, you'll see. When I wrote the book, I said, well, you know what, looking out, several years, I think gold can reach $5,000. Well, here we are. And I said, if gold reaches 5,000 and I use the 15 to 1 ratio, that's $333 silver. Well, we haven't made it yet to $300 silver, but we have reached $5,000 gold. And I, in fact, now think we're ultimately going to go well past even $10,000 gold. So even if you get a 30 to 1 ratio, but you're at $10,000 gold, you're still at 300 and a few dollars for silver. Right. I also looked at the Dow to silver ratio. I looked at the average home price to silver ratio when silver hit that peak in 1980. And if you looked at average home prices in 2022 when I wrote the book, and if you looked at those prices then, and the ratio, if the ratio were to fall back to what it was in 1980, again, it was always pointing me to a price in the $300 range. And that's why, again, I didn't pull it out of a hat. It's by using different indicators, making certain assumptions, and that was the general range.
If I could add one more thing is, I own silver mines and I own gold mine. My proudest achievements, I took a gold mine public on New York Stock Exchange, and that gold mine was in Utah. But the thing I found out about silver, it's really hard to find in many ways. It's less valuable than gold, but it's harder and harder to find, and consumption is going up. Plus, the national debt is going up. And there's a book by a friend of mine, Lawrence Lepard, who says The Big Print, and they're going to start printing money like crazy to cover the debt. And when they print money, that means the dollar goes down in value. If the purchasing power of the dollar, the yen, or the peso, the euro goes down, and the price of precious metals go up. So those are some of the reasons I'm so bullish on silver. And like I said, it's an industrial metal as well as a precious metal. So we come back, we'll be talking to I finally got to meet Peter Krauth. He's my hero, a great book, The Great Silver Bull. and I am a silver bull, big fat one. When we come back, we'll be talking more about Peter and what he sees for the price and the value of silver. One big reason I'm optimistic in silver is I own gold mines, I own gold coins. But the reason I buy what I call green box silver eagle, US silver eagle, and there's 500 each inside of them, is because when that dollar collapses, which I think it will, and they start printing, then I'm going to start using silver as spending, whereas I wouldn't do that with gold. It just takes, you can't go into a supermarket, it's like a $10,000 gold coin here. They won't take it. But silver is a little bit more walk around money, I call it. And so that's why I'm such a big fat silver bull. So they're called silver eagles. The silver, every country, not every mint produces them. They come in bars, coins, and all this. So I don't recommend. I'm not an advisor, but we're not saying buy silver, but I definitely consider. So Peter, what other reasons do you have for silver? Your bullishness on silver?
So Robert, you mentioned earlier about how hard it is to find, and I can certainly confirm that. So for your viewers, it's important, I think, to realize that only about 25% of silver that comes out of mines comes out of actual silver mine. The other 75% comes as a byproduct from mining other things like gold or copper or lead and zinc. So, here's what's interesting. If a miner that produces silver as a byproduct, not their main metal, is happy to get paid for the silver that they produce, that silver is really not that important to them. It's a small part of the revenue stream. Sometimes they hardly even report it. So they're happy to accept a high price for silver, but they don't go out of their way to try and produce more. And I think that's one of the big reasons that silver production, mined silver has not kept up with the pace of demand. So the last time or the highest amount of silver ever mined was in 2016. And it was about 900 million ounces of silver that year. We have not ever, so that's 10 years ago, we have not ever matched that level. So imagine, silver demand has exploded. We have run deficits since 2020, and we're not producing more silver. So where's it going to come from? People have said to me, well, there's lots of silver that's owned privately, these private hoards. And if the price is high enough, it'll come to market. And perhaps, and to some extent, probably yes, but not at $40 or $50 or $60. It's going to have to be at much, much higher prices that some of that silver will start to come to market. And I'm not so sure how willing people will be to let go of that silver. So I don't operate on that assumption. I operate on the assumption that the market is going to remain very tight for many. Just solar panels alone require 20% of the annual supply of silver. That one application is 20% of all of the silver produced every year.
Question is this: there's silver bull and there's silver hater. So what are some of the complaints or the justification for silver haters hating silver?
Well, it's never going to go up. It's never going to go over 50. Now that it's over 50, it's soon going to go back below 50. People just, love to be pessimistic. I don't get it. But I can tell you that I've read a few times that there's financial or economic behavior research that says that people who are optimists actually are more successful investors. So that's something to keep. And you know what, Robert, as you have, and you've been very patient, but also on the right side of the trade, I bet that the price you paid for some of your silver is almost insignificant compared to today's price. I mean, it's barely a rounding error. It's been very profitable to be a silver investor in the last few years, and I think that there's this thing called recency bias. People always look back at the recent past and think, oh, well, this is how things have played out. That's how they're likely to continue to play out going forward. And I think that's like kind of like sticking your head in the sand like an ostrich. I think I say do your research. Then place your bets, be patient. And if you've done good work, good research, odds are good that your thesis is going to play out. And I'm not saying you have to, allocate everything you have to this one trade, but at least have exposure to certain things. And again, this is not advice, but I think having some exposure on some level to silver is for everyone. One of the other knocks against silver is its volatility, right? It is absolutely more volatile. Both the metal and the stocks are more volatile than many other asset classes, more than gold, for example. But people can use that volatility to their advantage. Buy when it's come off, sell if you want when it's run up, and take some profits. If you're going to invest in the miners, start with metal is my view. At least that's the approach I take. For me, start with the metal, and then if you're going to get some exposure to the miners, if you have a lower risk tolerance, start with the larger mining companies. You know that companies like Pan American Silver and Wheaton Precious Metals, these are some of the largest public silver companies in the market, period, globally. And in the 2000s, they both had, at different periods, they both had run-ups over a few years of 16 times, 1,600%. So you can get that with the larger companies in this space. You don't have to take the biggest risk with the small explorer. It's really something that can make for life-changing return.
Yeah, my biggest thing is I look at the national debt. Is that going up or down? Going up.
Well, I think that's an easy answer.
what is the demand for silver? It's going up, whereas gold kind of remains neutral because you don't really need gold for industrial use, primarily money and jewelry. But silver, like I said, there was iron that drove the industrial age, and silver is driving the information. So that's why its consumption keeps going up. And a lot of the silver came from recycling and people going into selling their silver pottery and stuff like that. But those days are gone. So that's why I became a silver bull. And like I said, I've searched for gold, and I've owned gold mines and silver mines.